And I got involved through an investigative journalist, Jim Sanders, and his wife, Elizabeth, who had both already been arrested and convicted of conspiracy
Oh, wow.
for Jim's daring to write about this. The leading, the person that the media feared most and that the government feared most was a retired naval flight commander named William Donaldson, who was formidable and outspoken and was the lead sort of counter investigator. And he died of a brain tumor in 1999. And, I'm hoping that was nature at work. But that, with his death, the investigation took a back seat. I picked it up in 2000 when I met the Sanders and I heard their story. And when I realized that, especially Elizabeth Sanders, who was a trainer and flight attendant for TWA, wow. Sweet Filipino American, prettiest woman, nice, and she's going to jail, for introducing her husband, an investigative reporter, to her friend, who was the head of the 747 pilots and working at the investigation site. There were a lot of people inside that were seething at what was going on, but they had almost no outlet. I mean, who do you go to? The New York Times doesn't want to hear from you. Right. Of the 750 eyewitnesses, they interviewed one. And they interviewed him only because he supported a theory that they were running at the time that it was a bomb, which is crazy. But so the others were just left, in the lurk trying to find each other. And it took time for that to happen. Right now, there is a very serious lawsuit proceeding. And I got to give credit here to Tom Stalker, who is a physicist, who did the documentary in 2015, TWA Flight 800, and who is a no-nonsense guy. And he has, the family members are the actual plaintiffs in this suit.
Right.
And the work he's done is really impressive. And I don't know what'll come of it, but if anything's to come of it, that might. The fellow I went public with, and his name William Teal.
Right.
And he's a 10-year Navy veteran. He was at that time just an ordinary seaman, but he was working in the information center, the command information center on the ship. So he wasn't on the ship, but his ship was in the group that was responsible.
Right.
And so he heard the information coming across. They had to scuttle all their logbooks and everything and head to Bermuda and run away from the scene.
Bermuda.
But after I posted that article on American Thinker,
right,
and I was originally going to title it "Whistleblower TWA 800 Whistleblower Seems Legit," but I just thought that was too soft because William had been giving me all kinds of information to validate his claims, including his own official Navy, history, et cetera, the history of the ships involved, whatever. And he'd been reaching out to other people on board, and his captain, and he'd been making a really good faith effort. So I titled it TWA 800 Whistleblower is Legit.
Right, I know.
He's legitimately who he says he is, but he has information that's 26 years old and it's from a limited perspective. I agree, I admitted that. So I invited people in the course of the article, if you have more, better information, contact me. Boy, that article got around. I've heard from about 20 military people or airline pilots who supplied, in most cases, correcting, confirming, adding detail. None of them, maybe one, and this one looked like a planted disinformation piece, refuted the theory that the Navy could have shot down its own plane. Others added wrinkles. I did not get the top level naval guys saying, William is exactly right. I didn't expect that.
Right.
But we continue to add data and detail to the story. It's 26 years old now. But yet at the same time, that many of the people who are responsible, including the Clintons, are still around.
Right.
And, people who knew, people like George Stephanopoulos, are well placed in the media
Right.
And so people are still young and healthy enough that they don't want this story to come out.
Yeah, I read the comments on the American Thinker piece, and it looked like a lot of people have a lot of things to say about it. But you know what? It didn't go away, and it's not going away. And the lawsuit is a big deal because we know that there's a giant lawsuit also from the 9/11 families that have been totally, dismissed and shut down, and they're still going forward. With the guys, I know the guys who made Loose Change, the first documentary about 9/11 that I saw, and I thought, wait, that's crazy. They have a new one called The Unspeakable, and this is the families that are still out there, and this is the people all over the world that just want answers. They just want the truth. They want answers. There's a lot of information. They just want their day in court, and they're denying them. This story is so much older, but it still seems that the same passions. I mean, there were a bunch of high school kids going to France for study abroad. Their families deserve to know the truth. And it seems in what I'm reading from you is that it is not only plausible, but it's not the only time it's happened. And we're at a place where transparency, I mean, people, look, you write prolifically. People do not trust right now our intelligence agencies. The military is not making sense, and there's a lot of people coming out of the ranks to do and to speak up. Not enough, in my opinion, but we're at a place where there is mass just inability to understand how our own agencies are functioning, seemingly against us. Do you see these cases? This Flight 800, the 9/11 parents and families? Any of this stuff, I mean, I feel like it's got to give at some point. How much more can the people see while standing back and allowing it to continue?
No, I think it will give at some point. And I think what's nice about, I'm not nice, but TWA 800 has an advantage. It's just one specific concrete event.
Right.
I've talked about this before. There are two kinds of conspiracies, basically. One is conspiracy of execution. And those are very few, very hard to pull off. Conspiracies of concealment are a dime a dozen.
Right.
And they're the natural impulse of people in power. And this is a conspiracy, not of execution. Then they didn't plan to do this. There was no one on that plane who deserved his or her own missile. This was a conspiracy, a classic conspiracy of concealment. There were a couple of reasons to conceal it. The reason that would have been given to the rank and file is this was a top secret, exercise. We can't let the enemy know that we're vulnerable, blah, blah, blah. But the real reason was sitting in the White House saying, I got to win this reelection. But it's, there's a lot going on. And, what's interesting today, we're talking the day after Liz Cheney's career was handed to her in a rusty platter. And I wrote an article about this last week because what intrigued me is that the deep state took a hit on her father when they went after, and this is the Valerie Plame affair.
Oh, right.
Which younger people have never heard of because even though it was massive at the time, it was so trivial and insignificant in the history of things and so clearly and easily refuted that it was almost silly to pursue it then. But just in a nutshell, for those who need a refresher, Valerie Plame, what made her case attractive to the media was that she was attractive.
Right. She was a woman that looked like what you'd picture like a CIA spy, it was
in the movies. Right. Helen Mirren as
right, exactly.
Well, they made a movie. I forget who played her, but they made a movie about it.
I'm sure.
Her husband was this conniving international wheeler dealer who just saw an opportunity to become a whistleblower. He didn't have anything to whistleblow about, but and then her name was leaked to the media inadvertently by someone who had nothing to do with the Bush White House, a Powell loyalist, deep state swamp dweller named Richard Armitage. And they went after Cheney and his
Scooter Libby, right?
His chief of staff, Scooter Libby. And they got him on a process crime, even though they knew from the beginning he wasn't the leaker.
Right.
They knew that Armitage was the leaker, but they had the special counsel thing going, so they figured they'd go after White House. Cheney was outraged. And he says the same things that Trump is saying now. This was, this was unfair, it was a hit, it was blah, 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 perversion of justice, blah, blah, blah. And Bush wouldn't pardon Scooter Libby.
I know. I think Trump pardoned him.
Trump pardoned him. and Scooter Libby, was enormously grateful for the pardon. And it came, 10 years after the fact.
Right.
But you would think that Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney would take their own experience into mind when they see what's happening now to Donald Trump. But apparently they didn't. The people of Wyoming did,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you couldn't. She comes out in her speech, like it seems like she's deranged, like it's gone too far. Because in her concession speech, she compared herself basically to Lincoln and said she'll be back. And I'm thinking, oh my God. Now, the Cheney, though, we all have to look back. It appears to me, in looking at everything between Cheney and Rumsfeld and all of them, with everything we've learned in the last 25 years, the whole war on terror, Halliburton, how deep state he is, what he's done since. It just seems to me also that Cheney that Bush Jr. was more of a, like a character, like a puppet, and it was really Cheney that was in control. So I understand why him and his daughter are freaking out that Trump is somehow such a danger to our republic. No, they're a danger to what the deep state set up for
right. And that's
republic.
Right. He threatens all those power bases. And, I voted for W twice. I thought he was a decent guy. I never, we knew his limitations, but I personally think he was honest. And I don't think that they consciously lied about WMDs, even though the truth was something other than what they told us.
Right.
But for Cheney should have been hugely more sensitive to what the media Democratic complex can do. And this is a little slightly different from it's a more superficial power source, the Democratic media complex in Washington, because they'll go after any Republican.
Oh, yeah.
Liz Cheney says she wants to run for president.
I mean, have you ever? It's so over the top. And then, but the thing is, I think that there's still a lot of unanswered questions. I would say that her father is the least liked person that is still around from that whole Democratic Bush world. And then she brings him out to do an ad for her. And I'm thinking, does she have no idea what is going on? That people are seeing through this. People are looking back at the war on terror with a lot of skepticism. I got a lot of emails from people, including my own brother-in-law, who fought in all over in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and they're still asking, what's the truth really about what the whole war on terror was about? Because you and I talked about it once before, but another thing that's starting to get some traction and people are talking about it is that the Patriot Act was written before 9/11. It was implemented after 9/11. But now everything that's happened since, it just seems like it's like the Patriot Act on steroids. They just can't stop. And at this point, it does really appear that the entire deep state is at war with American citizens. How do you see this?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's increasingly that's become true, certainly at the top levels. And they purged, during Obama year, they just purged a whole lot of generals, who believed in winning wars, who believed in promoting
the homeland
merit, and now it's at the top, and at the top in all the agencies, it's seriously problematic. And I don't know how deep that reaches to, I know an awful lot of, what they're having a real problem in the military is getting guys to re-up.
I know.
And they're having a hard time getting real recruits. And I mean, other than then they got to dip, they've given up the high school degree and
the physical fitness standards.
That's right, because the people people, like certain families produce priests and nuns, other families produce military people.
Right.
And these are Midwestern, mid-American, conservative, hardworking people who believe in the country and their children, and they have children, and many of their children, follow their fathers and grandfathers or grandmothers, whatever, into war. Mm-hmm. Not their grandmothers, but they're, who knows? Maybe they were. Yeah. And so there's a tradition. And now they're looking at a military in which they're being, running CRT classes and and they have transgender generals and whatnot,
Yeah.
It's discouraging.
Cops too. Cops
Yeah.
too. I'm seeing that with
Yeah.
a lot of cops, a lot of NYPD cops. I know 3 myself. Their fathers and their grandfathers were cops.
Yeah.
And they just want out. They're going to move. We've lost 2,500 cops in New York City since.
Oh, the recruitment's terrible. I mean, they can't get, and I don't blame anyone for, why would you want to, why would you want to sign up? And I was talking to someone who went through it recently and dropped out at the last minute.
Wow.
And they would give them very serious talks. You can expect to be sued. They tell them.
Right.
You have to be prepared for that. You might be charged, for some crime or another. But anyhow, I just want to tell you, I got a funny story to tell you. This is relevant to what's going on in the world, right? And this is the first time I've told it because it only happened yesterday.
Oh, great. I like being the first one.
And it has national consequences.
Okay, let's hear it.
And it was a total fluke. It was so fluky that my friend and I couldn't believe it happened. I met for breakfast yesterday. I'm in Kansas City right now. I met for breakfast with this friend of mine who was a total on the endangered species list for a year as a white middle-aged reporter for a major newspaper, right? And then he devolved down to unicorn status as like the last.
Wow.
And then now he's gone. Right. So he's starting his own, he's now executive editor of a regional news gathering organization.
Great.
Called the Heartlander. Okay. So he wanted to talk to me about writing for the Heartlander. And so I met him for breakfast and we're talking. And I said, what kind of work are you doing? And they showed me an article he's working on that he just published on a guy named John Wood. Wood is running for Senate, U.S. Senate, as an independent in Missouri. He's being sponsored by John Danforth, who's turned into a total weasel. They're with perhaps as many as $40 million behind him to deny the Senate seat to the Republican, basically, who would otherwise be a shoo-in, Eric Schmidt.
Right.
And
I know him. Yeah.
So, and I voted for Schmidt in the primary. He got nearly 50% of the vote in a crowded field. He's an easy favorite.
Yeah.
So he's telling me about this. And then this guy comes down, we're at breakfast, and there's a big space and not a lot of people, but the waiter seats a single guy at the table about 3 to 5 feet away from us, right? And he sits down. And I never saw the guy. He was got a dough-faced, large, total preppy. It's like he was looking his way into a JC Crew photo shoot or something, Because it was a cold, rainy morning. I'm wearing an overcoat. He's wearing just shorts and a pink Izod or something.
Right.
So I read the article. I handed it back to him. And then my friend says to me, very sotto voce, he goes, I think that's him.
Oh, my God. Wow.
So
what are the odds?
Then he scrolls down and he hands me a picture of him. And I look at it and I look over at this guy. And this guy's, by the way, he doesn't know this yet. If anyone's listening to the show, he doesn't know who we talked to at breakfast yesterday, right?
Oh my God, how crazy.
This is the first time thing. There will be an article in American Spectator about this tomorrow, but
great.
I figured I'd break it here today.
Right.
So I look over at him. Now, my friend Mike is in a sort of reportorial stage. He doesn't feel like he should be, he's writing articles about the guy. I feel it would be inappropriate to question him. I don't. So,
yeah.
So I look over at him. I don't know that it's him, but I just said, hey, John, right? And he goes, hey, I said, oh, you're the guy running for Senate in Missouri, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Now he's like totally engaged. He turns towards us, right? And I said, tell me what motivated you to get into, I'm asking these questions like an innocent kind of citizen.
Right, like a constituent.
Right. Which I am.
I know.
And I said, I just kind of curious, what motivated you to get involved in the case and in the race in the first place? He goes, well, Senator Danforth called me. Danforth, by the way, had a moment in the sun when he ushered Clarence Thomas into, he was totally responsible for getting Thomas nominated. He was always this like Lincoln-esque kind of figure, or as he saw himself, right? And he's very wealthy. He comes from a very wealthy family, Ralston Purina or something. And now he's like the aging, venerable moderate in chief, right?
Right.
So he's, Jack Danforth invited me, called me and said, why don't you come out? And he said, we were concerned that Eric Greitens, the former governor who disgraced, would get nominated, and then I would be in place. I said, but Greitens wasn't. I never really had a chance. I said, Eric Schmidt is the guy. And he goes, oh, are you guys Republicans? I said, yeah. He goes, did you vote in the primary? I said, yeah, I did. I voted for Eric Schmidt.
Right.
Which makes me wonder why you're still in the race, right? Now I'm changing the tone a little bit.
Good for you. We need more of this. This is what we need to answer these questions. Good for you.
Now, the trick is, unlike at a cocktail party or something, he has breakfast on the way. Right?
So he's stuck.
He can't leave. His breakfast is coming.
We need more of this.
Right. So I said to him, I said, I said, you have no chance of winning. You know that, right? I said, you were sent here to divide the Republican vote and to get the Democratic elected to the president. I said, why? What's the motive here? Why are you doing this? Oh, no. I have a real good chance of winning. I said, you have no chance of winning.
Right. People love that's the other guy.
Right. I said, you have a $5 million home in Virginia and you just rent an apartment in Kansas City, like this summer, and registered to vote for the first time.
Good for you.
And then it gets even, then we get into conversations and he goes, well, no, I see, I'm just trying to, he calls himself a common sense conservative. I said, stop this. I said, what you're doing, and here's the real danger, I said to him, is that you're perpetuating, and he said, oh, Schmidt was too close to Trump.
Okay.
And that, what else did he say about Schmidt?
Well, he's dividing the ticket so that the Democrat has a chance.
Right. And
it's happening all over the country. This is not isolated. What you witnessed, this is what people all over the country should be asking these people, because it's very obvious.
And so it's so rare that I get the chance, and he can't go anyplace.
He didn't even know he was sitting next to like a reporter that's been commentating.
He didn't ask us our names. I didn't deny. I did not tell him who I was.
I know.
I never asked. And I said, but you see what you're doing, though, is that what you're helping to perpetuate is this dual system of justice in the United States right now.
Right.
There's one system of justice for Democrats and one system of justice for Republicans. It's the biggest problem right now. Right. And if you succeed in getting the Democrat elected, this is going to continue. And then he says, oh, what are you talking about? Or, something like this. I said, do you know who Ashley Babbitt is? And here's the interesting thing. He left his position as investigative counsel on the January 6th commission to come back to Missouri to run for the U.S. Senate, even though he has a $5 million home in McLean, Virginia. And I said, do you know who Ashley Babbitt is? And he goes, yeah. He goes, and I said, you're okay with that? You're okay with just the police officer just shooting her and killing her? He goes, oh, she was acting under the color of law, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, there is no excuse. That's disgusting.
Now, I said, do you know who Roseanne Boyland is? Right? He says, no.
Oh, no.
I said, well, for your information, she was the woman who was beaten and gassed while she was laying dying in a tunnel at the Capitol. I'm thinking, this guy's on the committee. He doesn't know who she is, right? And then, he continues up. Then Mike, the other guy, steps up and he says, because he's saying, John Wood is saying, no, there's no dual system. He goes,
oh,
what
really?
about? And
anyone
he says,
would say that. It's such a fraud.
And then Wood says that he has the FBI has been acting in good faith. And then Mike, the other fellow, says, how about those FICE applications? He said they lied repeatedly on the FICE applications, not just once, but multiple times, right? And then he goes, well, that's, there's a special counsel looking into that, mumbled something, And then I said, let's face it. I said, 95% of the people in D.C. voted against Trump. How do those people get a fair trial? I said, I'm going on like this. You don't get a chance to talk to someone who's in a position like this. And I said, they've been convicting January 6th protesters before they're eating their donuts yet. And I said, no Democrat will ever be prosecuted. What was the name? Sussman got off, even though they're irrefutable. And then, and he just continued on. And I finally said to him, I said, listen, John, what you and your people are doing are turning this country into a banana republic,
Yeah.
And then I said, go ahead and eat your breakfast.
Good for you. But listen, this is the truth, because the problem is what he's doing is happening all over this country and everywhere that it can. And they're all swamp creatures. They don't want Because what I noticed when I was on the road, I went to 6 states to speak at people's events. But I also met a lot of people on the other side. The DNC does not want anyone new either. So there's a lot of Democrats that, do not agree with the progressive policies, with what they're doing in schools, with CRT, right, with open borders. They don't want them either. The GOP is guilty of wanting to keep the status quo. So is the DNC. And then there's people on the outside that can't get in because of people like this being put up for it to divide the ticket and have the other guy win. And they won't even admit it. And he knows he's lying to your face.
Right.
He knows exactly what he's doing and doesn't have the guts to just say, yeah, we don't want a Trump guy in there. And I'm going to do it. First of all, Stitt's going to win anyway. But the bottom line is, this is happening all over the country in local races too.
Oh, I know.
What do we do?
Schmidt is, just in the way of background, Trump carried Missouri twice by 15 points. The Democrat has no chance, no realistic chance. I don't even know who it is.
Right.
I think she's part of the Bush, BUSCH, the Budweiser family.
Oh, yeah.
And Schmidt, in a field, it included two popular Republican sitting congresspeople, and a former governor, Ryans, and the guy I like, Mark McCloskey, who is the guy who defended his
I liked him too. Yeah. I wanted him to win.
I met him. I would have voted for him if he had.
But what I'm saying is this guy is an example. It's going on in every jurisdiction all over this country. And I think it's the same billionaires behind funding all this. It's a small group. I think it's like an oligarchy that are Democrat liberal billionaires that are funding all of this deception. And the people that are suffering are the people that are being deceived and brainwashed in America on purpose to destroy our country.
Yeah. Well, I had my article will be in American Spectator tomorrow, and I went after Danforth, who is like this model, iconic, wise
just
head,
like Robert Byrd.
Yeah.
Him and Robert Byrd. Great.
Who's supposed to be above the fray, but he's always coming out. The Democrats know they can go to him for a soundbite on something Trump did, or not just Trump, but because he was the sponsor for Josh Hawley, our other senator, right?
Wow.
And then when Josh Hawley turned out to be Josh Hawley,
right?
Danforth disowned him publicly, denounced him, right? And,
but you look back and you have to believe, because I saw even all the way back to Hoover and all them, these people are compromised. I don't know. The blackmail ring, this is why I will not give up on knowing who's on Epstein's tapes, who's on Weiner's laptop, who's implicated, because a lot of these people, it seems to me, their main reason for doing what they do is to hide their own crimes. Like you brought up earlier about Flight 800. Well, there's the whole, I've talked to a lot of people, Kathy O'Brien, other people that are whistleblowers, this reasons on national security that shuts down everything transparency wise, or like what they're doing with Trump, with they don't want to put out the affidavit that supports the raid because reasons of national security. It's like a catch-all phrase for we committed crimes and we don't want to get in trouble for it or for the public to know. So we're going to just say that it's about your security or the nation's security. But again, it always is probably because there were crimes committed and they're being covered up and people are being protected. So Danforth, if he's turning on everyone and he's the go-to guy, like Cheney will be for the rest of our lives, Liz Cheney, or the Lincoln Project folks, it's like, well, what do they have on you that you've betrayed everything you claim to have been?
Well, in Danforth's case, that's a good question. He's at least well into his 80s, I think, and he's always been considered like a saintly figure, right? And during the Clarence Thomas hearings, I was really proud of him. I think I believe he's denounced Clarence Thomas.
Yeah, but something happened along the way to these people. They got compromised, because I think that's what's going on with these judges in D.C. I wanted to ask you about D.C. Is it because D.C. is a vassal state and not really a part of the United States that they're so rogue? Because they're not running by the Constitution, the rule of law, why are these judges and these prosecutors and all these people in DC getting away with literally criminal behavior, at the very least malpractice of their law?
Well,
What is going on
start
there?
with the reality that in 2016, Trump got 4% of the vote in the District of Columbia. He did better. He improved by 50%, actually, at 6%. Those are probably the people who moved to Washington in the administration.
But what
And
is
so
going on there?
they shouldn't even have
crazy.
trials. They should not have political trials in the District of Columbia, period.
No way. I don't
And
see how it's even legitimate.
yeah.
It's really
And
crazy. And the last thing before I let you go, because I have to ask you about it. So we just had the Build Back Better bill pushed through as some fraudulent Inflation Reduction Act, which is the opposite. We're going to have 700 billion in new taxes. And
right.
but the big story that everyone's not happy about is the 87,000 IRS agents that will be armed and trained. Also, Jack, being hired, because you've done a lot of great stuff on the Obama years. I still suggest to everyone all of your books on Obama, especially Obama's Promised Land, and then the real story of really Obama's background. But the truth is that they're hiring under diversity, equity, and inclusion, new anti-racism HR department guidelines that were given out when Joe Biden did an executive order when he got in about diversity, equity, inclusion hiring. So
Right.
They're not hiring the best and brightest accountants. They're literally hiring under diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that makes me even more scared of who they're hiring.
There's not 87,000 of these people, right? And this is what if they don't know this now, they will soon. I was just talking to a friend of mine who works for the IRS. I said, we're getting 87,000 new people because we can't even keep the people we have,
Right.
And under those guidelines, we're running out of people of color.
Right.
They're all doing TV commercials now. They don't want to work.
I know it's very big business. Yes, you can't. If you are a manly white straight man, the commercial industry is not so good for you anymore.
No,
or a blonde woman.
Oh well, yes, because you can play the guy breaking into houses,
right.
or the guy making
husband.
a fool of himself, right?
Exactly.
They're discriminating against black comic ad guys. So let's say you're a comic sort of bumbling guy, and you're black. Well, you're not going to get a job because all the idiot jobs are being reserved for white people.
I know. And it's in your face and it's obvious. But I think that this people have to understand they're not hiring IRS agents. They're hiring just to me. Obama told us that he wanted his own army, his own force. He's the one who started arming, as far as I can see, the IRS and the other agencies. And to me, this looks like this is the beginning, because remember with Lois Lerner, of course, you wrote about it. It seems to me like this is going to be some kind of enforcement arm for their ESG score and their social credit and all that. I believe God will be intervening prior, because it's.
I think so. I've begun to call the Bidens Papa Doc Biden and Baby Doc Hunter. And you're right. What they're hiring are their Tonton Macoutes,
Right. It's not what it seems, and I believe that they're hiring the Stasi of the ESG score, social credit score, and I cannot even believe that we're living in this banana republic. But you know what? I have a lot of faith in God and in humanity, and I just think we're past the tipping point. I was driving up to an event I was doing with Flynn in Batavia, New York, real upstate New York.
I know. I spend my summers in upstate New York. So.
Oh, it's so nice up there. The Finger Lakes area. It's so gorgeous. But I passed a lot of Amish, and I'm thinking, we got to get the Amish involved. We got to get the 30% of Americans that have nothing to do with politics, don't watch this stuff, don't follow it, don't believe in it, to actually say, because they're hurting too. And they're going to get their land taken. They're going to get harassed. All this is going to happen to these people that just want to be left alone and aren't engaged. And I think that we got to figure out a way to get to those people, I think.
A couple of things. A, they're more engaged than you think. B, they vote overwhelmingly Republican. C, the Amish feature in my, speaking of Finger Lakes, my book, 2006, The Chautauqua Rising, which is about an Amish, redneck kind of uprising that prefigured it was written in 2000.
Wow.
And it prefigured you got to read this novel when you get a chance.
I will.
And it's the climactic scene takes place at the Chautauqua Institution, which is where Salman Rushdie was nearly killed the other day.
Oh my! I was right near. That's where I couldn't believe it.
I was there 2 weeks ago. I go there frequently. There's a
Wow.
dissident group on campus. It's turned totally lib and everything. You can
Right, I
imagine.
know. We stopped at Cornell. I was like, "Oh, is this another place?"
Yeah, Cornell is. I almost went there, but
Oh God.
the thing is, they wanted to have an Islamic presence at this
I
place,
know.
and they convinced themselves that Islam is a religion of peace. And Salman Rushdie knew otherwise, and he found out the hard way that it's not. And there's a lot of finger pointing up there, including the fact that they wouldn't allow the sheriff's deputies to serve campus who hadn't been jabbed, which was
Oh
virtually
my
all of
God, are
them.
you kidding me?
That's the
Oh.
story. That's unconfirmed, but that's what I'm
No,
hearing.
no, no. It's probably true because New York, this Hochul, we got to get rid of this lady. I have a friend who just won a lawsuit against Hochul and Letitia James against the quarantine camp thing that everyone thought went away. She got it overturned. They're appealing it. They want to
Yeah.
be able to put people in concentration camps.
Yeah.
But no, that's great. I'm gonna get that novel of yours about the Amish because I kept passing Amish places and I kept saying to Rob, I want to go talk to the Amish. We need them. We need them to get involved and help us, A, to teach us how to live off the land and create our own economy. And B, because I think I was like in my head, because I was like going off, I was like, I bet they should have like a fight club downstairs, like the move, of the Amish they're all prepared and ready and they gotta get us all, we gotta join with them.
Well, I tell you what, I have a summer place on Lake Erie, which is in
Oh,
Chautauqua
so
County,
nice.
and it's heavy Amish country. And when end times comes, I'm heading up there.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Show me how to cut that corn there.
Right. I mean, we were driving. I was like, I want to stop. We stopped and bought some stuff from them at a market, and
Yeah.
I was thinking, I wonder if I should ask if they have meetings I can attend if I just sit in the back. Oh, that's great.
I don't think you'll fit in exactly, but you never know.
No, but I could go get some clothes that kind of.
Well, if they all the women look like Kelly McGillis in her prime, and you've seen Witness, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and they but I tell you, yeah, look, there are a lot of people that, need to that you said they are engaged, but there are a lot of people that aren't engaged that are starting to feel the pressure too. And I think when we have more people step up to protect their family, their land, their futures, and their children, then we have a tipping point that we can work with.
Yeah, you order my book. You'll see it is so utterly pathetic. It scares me to reread it.
I thought I came up with this idea. Of course, it was Jack Cashel. I'm sitting there saying we need the Amish to educate us on how to survive.
Totally with you on that.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jack Cashel. Everyone should check out his book about flight TWA 800 and all of his books, especially his books about. I talk more and more about your books about the truth about who Barack Obama is and where he came from and how he got here, because he's still running the White House, and every day it becomes more obvious that they're all globalists and